Okay, hello everyone. Also welcome everyone to our third webinar in the webinar series. Today we will discuss the new NREO archive access tool. And just before we jump in, a little bit of advertisement that the next one is going to be next month in June on the VLA Science Ready data product that will be presented by Dr. Mark Lacey, who is project scientist for that. But today we do have with us John Tobin. John is a scientist in Charlottesville, and it's a project scientist for the new archive access tool. And he'll tell us all about that. If anyone has questions, please put it in a chat or raise your hand. If there's a question that you would like to have answered on the spot, maybe the putting up the hand is better. Otherwise, I'll sort of figure out whether to ask it on the spot or leave it for later. And I now leave it to John.
All right, thank you, Anna. All right, hopefully you all can see my screen. Is it up, Anna?
Yes, sorry, yes it is.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, yes, so as Anna said, my name is John Tobin, so I'm the I wear many hats here at NRAO, but one of them is being the subsystem scientist for the new NRAO archive. And so just to give you a brief overview of what I'll have in my talk, I'm going to briefly talk about the need for a new archive. And you can see the link here, data.nrao.edu, if you did not have that link already. And if you try to go to the old archive, which was archive.nrao.edu, you'll find a different page that tells you to go here. And that because the old archive has been decommissioned. And then I'll talk about what the archive holdings are, and then how we interact with the archive, and show you some of the different things that the archive can do, some of which are above and beyond what the legacy archive was capable of. And then I'll tell you what's coming soon. So first, the need for a new archive. The legacy archive has basically reached end of life, and it was based on obsolete technologies, and it was very hard to maintain and add features to it. So before I even came back to NRAO as a staff scientist, a project had begun to completely revamp the NRAO archive, which has resulted in the new archive, which addresses a lot of the shortcomings of what the old archive has. But it's important to emphasize that this is like a complete re-implementation of the interface. It's not just a facelift. So a lot of the things under the hood have changed as well. And so we're at the point where we need to re-implement features because we can't simply take a feature from the old archive and activate it. We have to build the new feature into the new archive. So we're still actively developing the new archive tool. And so what you are seeing now is not necessarily what you will see several years from now. So we'll be adding features, and some of which may come from user requests. Other things are things that are still on our list to get done, but haven't gotten done yet. But we've reached a point where the new archive is very functional and can do just about everything the legacy archive could do. And so I provide some links in the talk here to the basic documentation that we have for searching for data and downloading your data. The slides are posted already, so you don't have to write down these links in real time. Well, one of the things that the new archive gives us that we could not really do in the old archive is the capability for post-processing on data. So we can give you calibrated measurement sets, so you're no longer on your own to run the pipeline or restore the pipeline calibrations. And you can do imaging of data sets and many other things, which I'll talk about. And now, what does the archive have in it? So the new NRA archive has all of the historical VLA data, which was from 1976 to 2010. It has all of the post-upgrade VLA data. It contains the VLBA data, GBT data from 2014 onward, almost cycle 1 and beyond, and data beyond that. This is mainly the visibility data. We don't currently have all of the ALMA images that are produced as standard products from the ALMA pipeline. But I should emphasize that this is not a replacement for the ALMA Science Archive. This is something that exists alongside the ALMA Science Archive. And our goal here is to add some value to how you can interact with ALMA products and not replace what the ALMA Science Archive is doing. We have VLAS images in the archive from epochs 1.1 to 2.1. Once we finish up epoch 2.2, which quick look processing is almost done, then all those images will get ingested into the NRO archive and can be served from there. We have VLA PI science images, which the VLA PI science imaging is just starting. So right now there's a very small handful of images in the archive, but once that goes into full operations later this summer, there will be a lot more. And then coming soon, we're going to have the images from NBSS first and the NRAO archive image tool. That was, which has been available for a while as well. And there is and it used to get access to a similar interface to the legacy archive, but there is still, it still has its own search interface that can still be accessed while we don't have that available in the new archive. All right, so now at this point, I'm gonna take you through a bunch of screen grabs of the new archive and point out the different features to you and show you what sort of all the different buttons do, because it's not always obvious exactly how you should be doing something or what you need to do in order to get what you want from the new archive. But when you first come to data.nrao.edu, this is the landing page that you get with the welcome message, and you just click OK to move on to the search interface. And when you after you hit OK, what you're going to see a screen that just has the latest data that were ingested into the archive. So I took this screen grab last week, and so you can see the last observations were May 5th. And so if you open this today, you're going to see observations that were probably from even May 11th or May 12th. And you'll notice that you see VLA data as well as ALMA data together, because we are serving both of those both types of data from the new archive. VLBA doesn't appear in this view just because those are all further down, but they are in this. You can find them in this view as well. And unlike the legacy archive greets you with a search interface. Here, you're sort of greeted with the list of you're greeted with this list of projects, and you are greeted with this blank search bar here. And so this is a free-form text search bar, and whatever you put in here is going to search abstract title, project code, the PI, COIs, or source name. So if you type in your name or your last name, all of the projects that contain your name will pop up in the search interface. And then you have these buttons down here, which this is another thing that's quite different from the legacy archive. You have view projects, view observations, and view images. So the default is always to bring you to the project view. So here you're just seeing the discrete projects that have been proposed to the telescope. So underneath this project, you might have a bunch of stuff. So for instance, this project here, 22A 388. So it's listed as one project, but you can see within that project, you've got 21 execution blocks. So there are 21 VLA SDMs within that project. And for this ALMA data set, 2021.1.548.s, this one has 40 execution blocks within it. So you have all of so this is giving you a high level view of what's in the archive. But if you go on to view observations, now you're just going to get a listing of all of the executions that were recently carried out on the telescope. So you can see here we have their most recent project was 22A 351. And if you move over to observations, you see that the last execution block was a 22A 351 execution block here. And so again, this is because I haven't searched for anything, this is just showing me the most recent data on the telescope. And then if you come over to images, you will see all of the images that we have that are in the archive. And this is this is not ordered by date. And you have to search for these to further refine your view. But you can see the images that pop up by default. These are the VLAS 1.1 images, and the archive is mostly VLAS images, but you can see there's 53,000 images in total in the NRAO archive. But one cool thing that you can do with the images is you can come here, and so when you want to select something in the new archive, you click on this little clipboard icon. And right now it shows you an X when it's selected. In the next version, it's going to give you a green check mark. So that it's a bit more intuitive that it's selected rather than deselected. But if you select a bunch of images, so in this case, they're all from VLAS 1.1, you can click on View in Carta. And when you do that, this is going to spin up a Carta server at NRAO. And then it's going, and so to do that, you click View Carta, you put in your email address, and then you submit your request. And then you go to the request handler, and it's going to pull the images out of the archive and put them in a temporary area, and then start up a Carta server. And that should take about 30 to 60 seconds, and the time can vary for those requests. And then you're going to be, when you select multiple images, you'll be greeted with this file dialog to choose which image to open. But if you only select one image, it'll automatically open it. And so then you have your 4 VLAS images to select from, and you can look at them and explore the data within Carta. One thing to point out here is you get the session timer in the Carta sessions, and right now these sessions expire after 1 hour regardless of activity. So these are meant to be temporary sessions to get a quick view of the data. But if you find that you like viewing the data online, you don't really want to be downloading the data, and you want longer, send us a help desk ticket. And if that's a feature you'd like to see, we'd like to hear about it. But for the moment, we thought an hour is a good amount of time to give you to explore the images. I don't think there's anything else to say here. Well, one peculiarity you might run into is that if you're trying to, so you see these are listed by project. If you're looking at a different view that maybe has VLAS, say you did a search and you have VLAS 2.1 and 1.1 images, you may find that you cannot select both VLAS 2.1 and VLAS 1.1 images because there's currently a restriction to not allow cross-project viewing of images. So you can't load up images from a VLA project and a VLAS project, for instance, at the moment. We're currently looking at that to see if we can loosen that restriction, but that's a current feature that we have. And then to just to further elaborate on what we do have the ALMA and VLA PI images in the archive. So in this view, I cropped this a bit, but I had to search way down in the archive for the most recent images, but there are images there from ALMA, and these are generated by the ALMA user-defined imaging tool that is available within the NRAO archive. I'll show you guys that later. And then the VLA PI images are starting to appear in there. And this is from the VLA imaging pilot that is going on right now for a few projects. And later in the year, we're going to start populating more images for individual projects. And these are also able to be viewed in CARTA as well, just like the VLAS images. And you can directly select them for CARTA by clicking on the little CARTA icon that appears here, which is right next to the clipboard. All right, and so this was just the high-level view, but now how do you interact with things with searching? So if you search for your own data, a lot can be accomplished with simple searches. And we also give you a view of just your own data when you log in, and it's going to show you your PI and COI projects. So this is a feature very much like the legacy archive that the legacy archive had when you logged in. So if you log in, you're going to, I don't show the login screen, but you'll come to what looks like the my.nrao.edu login screen, like when you're logging in for the proposal tool. Or to log into the legacy archive. So you'll see that view. And then after you've logged in, you're going to see, you'll see this view where that's my username, JJ Tobin, and you can click on that and see your data. And that's the view I'm in right now. So when you click on view your data, it takes away the search bar. And then I just see all of the projects that I'm a part of recently from both ALMA and VLA. And if you have them, there's VLBA and GBT. But if you're searching and not logged in, maybe you don't have any of your own data, but maybe you know who the PI is of a data set that you want to check out, you can just type in their last name. So in this case, I typed in my name, and I'm finding the recent projects that I've been observing on the telescope. And so again, this is the view projects view. If you go to view observations, you get a view of the most recent execution blocks. So 22A195 has been getting a bunch of data lately, as you can see, or I'm the COI on this project, not a PI, but you get listings for those just the same. And then if I want to view images that are from my projects, then right now I'm only seeing the ALMA images because right now I don't have any images from my VLA PI science data. And it's just the things that I have been creating as for testing of the ALMA user-defined imaging. All right, so that was a very simple search, but more complex searches are possible, and you can highly refine your searches to almost the extent that you could do with the legacy archive. So, and you do that by combining a lot of different parameters that are available in the metadata. And to do that, you click on this show search inputs box here. Or actually, it's not a box, but it's just you click on the text here. And that's going to expand the search interface to show you all the other fields that you can search on. And so, I mean, a lot of these are fairly self-explanatory. You got dates, date range, frequency, coordinates, and you can use our coordinate resolver if it's an object in Simbad or NED. You can search by source name, and that's going to be the source name within the NRAO archive. So whatever it was called in the observation, it will search on that. But if in general you're wanting to go on just if you need to resolve the coordinates, you have to go to the resolver tool. And then you can select your search return radius. You can search by telescope, array configuration, receivers, polarizations. And then these are the text search fields that you are also accessible from the search bar, which is project code, archive file name. So if you know the exact EB designation of your files, you can search for that here, and so forth. There's a couple of other tick boxes down here that are not shown prominently, but this one down here that says show only CMS data, that needs a bit more explanation, but what this means is that it's saying show only calibrated measurement set data. So only show data for which we have a calibration in the archive and is able to be restored through the archive. And then this box here is show only data that are flagged as public. So data that are beyond the proprietary period and anyone can download them. And then if you want to hide this search interface, you just click hide search inputs, but whatever you've entered into your search inputs remains for that search until you clear them. And if you want to clear your inputs, you click clear here. And I'll back up a few slides. And so once you've entered a bunch of search inputs, your active search inputs are going to appear here in this top row. So you'll see, if you add position, you'll see it here, source name, you'll see it here. And if at any time you want to remove one constraint, you just click the X, and that's going to take away that search constraint and broaden it to what it would be without having that constraint. So things to be aware of in quirks. So I mean, so interacting with this archive is certainly going to be different than interacting with the legacy archive. So one of the main things that you will probably run into if you're doing position searches is that currently they're quite permissive. The results that are returned are going to be for observations that are nearby your target, but they may not necessarily be contained within the primary beam. And this is due to how the default frequency dependent field of view searches have been implemented. Right now, they're far too permissive, and it's on our development list to make that better and put in a standard position search. And the other thing to be aware of is that ALMA mosaic footprints are not currently supported. So if there's an ALMA mosaic observation, it's probably only going to have one field position in there because ALMA handles the mosaics on a subscan level, which the new archive doesn't know about. So if you search for something that should be in a mosaic field, it's not going to get picked up at present, unless it overlaps with one of the other fields in the mosaic. In ALMA configurations right now, they're listed as 12 meter, 7 meter in total power. And this is, but you also get angular resolution information with ALMA data. So rather than focusing on fixed ALMA configurations, we list things by the angular resolution. And also, one thing that some users had gotten used to with the legacy archive was scripted search ability, and that is currently not available with the new archive, at least not in a simple way. And this is a development priority, and we're hoping to bring this feature back within the next 6 months or so. And searching and sorting on some metadata is not currently available. So for instance, you can't search or sort based on the total time on source or the total scan time, for instance. And so then getting into now how you interact with your search results. So in the project view, which is how you're going to get your search results by default, you click on, you see the listing of projects that conform to your search parameters. You click on the plus sign, and that's going to show you a bunch of stuff underneath the project view. So it's going to give you now I'll give you the full abstract of that proposal, the PI and COIs, and you can even click to search will then take you to the NRAO library where there's more information about the proposal stored. But then down below this, you get a listing of the observations and images that are associated with this project. And this project currently has no images, so I'm not going to show you that view, but it does have several observations associated with it. And in this view of the observations, so it shows you the archive file name, you get the project name again, instrument, start and stop, the file size, the array config, the bands that were observed, the type of data, whether it's visibility or images or visibility or fits, and calibrations. And so what this little icon here is telling you is that there is a calibration available for this data set, and right now there's only one calibration available for it. And then you get a list, and then you have the number of scans in the data set. So both this little CALs icon and the scans icon are links. And so if you click on the scans, the number of scans, it's going to take you to a list of scans. And so this is similar to what you had in the legacy archive, where you'd get a list of all scans within a data set. Currently, the scans are not listed in a particular order, and we know that that is a problem, and we plan to revise this view to make it more useful, to put it in chronological order by default, and to make it sortable, make it sortable by the columns. But what you can see in this view is you get the coordinates of the sources. Right now they're labeled as longitude and latitude, but longitude is right ascension, latitude is declination. The names of the sources, you get the min and max frequency covered, and then you get the scan intent. So whether this was observed target or a calibrator or a flux calibrator, or was it a system configuration scan, which these are the setup scans that you do at the start of any observation. Then you get the correlations that were observed as part of the observation. The temporal resolution is your integration time, is your single integration time. So this is like 3 seconds. So this is set by your resource configuration. So it'll depend on band and array configuration. And then you get the duration of each scan, so that if you're trying to figure out how much time is spent on any source, right now you'd have to add these all up, but in the future we're going to give you a better metric for how long something was observing a particular source. But from this view, you could get an idea of how much time was spent on a given source in an observation, so you can quickly tell, is this something that's worth looking at further if you're just doing an archive search because it has sufficient integration time, or was it far too short to be useful for your science? And then now coming back to the CALs, this CALs icon, you just click on this icon and it'll give you a little pop-up dialog to download the calibration tarball. And that's a fairly simple dialog where you just put in your email address and it's going to stage that calibration for download. Yeah, you'll see one of those very shortly. And so then if you want to download the full data set, you click on the little clipboard here. And so I've clicked on the clipboard for this data set already, and then you click download. And so a few things to be aware of for downloading of proprietary data. You have to log in order to download your proprietary data. And if you're not currently a COI on a project, data access key is no longer exist in the new archive, and you would have to submit a help desk ticket to, or the PI of the project would have to submit a help desk ticket to get a new COI added to a project, and that would give them access to the proprietary data. And so this is so when you're going to download the data, this is what that pop-up dialog that you will see in your web browser. And so it's going to ask for your email address. So if it's proprietary data, you have to be logged in, and your email will automatically be filled if you're logged in. And then this is the option for local delivery here, which many users might be familiar with. If you just want the data to be directly copied to someplace on the Lustre file system at in Socorro, you would specify that here. But currently this is restricted to staff. But within the next month or so, this is going to be opened up so that any logged in user can request a local delivery to a Lustre path. But still the restrictions on that remain, where it needs to be a world writable destination directory. And then there's this option here, whether you want to put everything into a tar file or not. We do not, so right now this is going to be checked by default, but that is getting changed in the next release in about a month. And we do not recommend using the tar file option, because for large data sets where you might have an SDM, which is hundreds of gigabytes, the tar file takes a very long time to build. And so we don't recommend that at present. And we recommend using our recursive wget command. And so there's the archive documentation link on slide 3 has that command, and I have it later in this talk. So going on to the next page here. So now the download format options. So there's the SDM tables, which that's only the metadata. You don't get any of the real visibility data. So you're probably going to be most interested in these bottom 3 options, which are the SDM BDFs, which is raw VLA data, a basic measurement set, which is the SDM BDF converted into a measurement set, but no calibration is applied, or a calibrated measurement set. And this option will only be available if a calibration is available in the archive. And so this apply telescopes flags, this is really only applicable to the basic MS, because if you're doing a calibrated MS, you're always going to get those flags, because we put the data at the final flagging state from the pipeline run. And for SDM BDF, I mean, that you're not flagging on the archival data format, so that it doesn't make a difference there. And generally, when you're restoring data, it's going to default to the latest CASA plus pipeline, and that is, in general, that should work fine. But if you have problems, you would want to restore with the data set that you would want to restore with the CASA version that the data set was calibrated with. But for VLA data, generally, our experience has been that the restores in the latest CASA work quite well, going back to as far as the data, as far as calibrated data are available in the archive, which is to 2016. A couple of other things I want to point out before I go on here, and just checking time, I think I'm okay. So when you're downloading data, if you want a calibrated measurement set, you can only do one at a time. You cannot select, if you select multiple data sets and then you click download, calibrated measurement set will be grayed out. And that's because right now we have a restriction where we only let one processing request go through at where it's going to be doing operations on data. We only let one of those go through at a time. And we'll look at that and see if that's something that we can and should open up depending on how users are interacting. But right now it's that's a restriction. But if you only want the SDMs or basic measurement sets, you can download many of them at a time. So you could select all the SDMs in this data set and then download all of the, you could select all of them and then download all of the raw data for that data set. That is allowed. And so then when you're ready to submit your request, all requests go to this other program called the request handler. So it takes you to a different web page, and this checks that you're authorized to access that data set, and so make sure that it's respecting proprietary periods. It provides some status where the request is at, because this blue text will change. So as initializing request, it may change to say fetching calibration tables, fetching data from archive. It could say running CASA with a PPR, and then it might say moving data to delivery area, and so forth. This request handler view is completely non-interactive. You don't have to do anything with this here. It's safe to close that tab or window. It's also safe to use your back button to go back to the archive interface. And you will get an email notification when a job is done. But if you have a bunch of things going, you can click on archive requests here. I don't have a page for that, but you can see what the status of what your other requests are, whether they're finished, whether they ended in error, or if they're still processing. But you can only get limited status updates. You can basically see if it's still running or if it has died somewhere. You can't cancel jobs, or you can't get exact status updates. So there's like no countdown for when exactly a request will be finished. The only time you really know when a request is done is when you get that email coming to when you get that email saying it's complete. So you'll get an email like this. You'll get NRAO archive request. You'll get the number, and when you first submit it, you'll get one that says submitted, and then when it's complete, you'll get one that says it's hopefully complete, or you might get one that says it failed if something went wrong during your request. And so what you get here, this is a link to that request handler page to get the status of to get your status. And then here is a direct link to the files that are associated with your request. And so, as I said before, you don't want to select it. If you don't want to select that tar file and wait for that tar file, you have to use a recursive wget command, which is what I list here. You have to, there's a bunch of extra stuff in here, because when you do a recursive wget, you'll get your requests in a bunch of subdirectories, and you'll get a bunch of extra HTML files that you really don't want. And so what this does is it gets rid of that, the extra files, and it gets rid of the extra directories. But if you just did wget-r on this link, it would get your data, but you would just get, it would just be several subdirectories inside that path. And this command, using this terminal command, is essential if you're downloading MSs and SDMs without using a tarball. And that's because the MSs and SDMs are not single files, but they have a bunch of subdirectories and files within them. And so you don't want to try downloading every file that's in an MS or SDM individually. That's just recipe to get data in a state that you can't use. So that's it. That's it for a lot of the main features in the archive. But now I'm going to just show you some of the individual features for ALMA and VLBA, starting with VLBA. So VLBA data are now through the NRAO new archive. And so up until recently, you would have to go to the legacy archive to get these, but now they're fully within the new archive. And I apologize for if I end up looking at one of your data sets. I'm not meaning to pick on anyone individually, but these were just data sets that I found in the archive that showed what I wanted to show for the talk. And so I don't have any VLBA observations myself, so I had to find some others. Otherwise, I try to use my own data as a demonstration wherever possible, so that I'm not using anyone else's data, just because, I don't know, in case anyone is sensitive of that. But here's a particular VLBA observation, and in the project view, it'll look very much like a VLA or ALMA project when you're searching. But in this case, I searched directly for a VLBA project code. And so if you click on the plus sign, you're going to get, you'll get the much like VLA data, you get the abstract, the PI, co-authors, observations and images, and you only have observations here for VLBA, no images at present. And this is the current view that you get in the NRAO archive, but we are changing this very soon, because within a VLBA project, right now we're just giving you a list of all of the IDI fits correlation files. They weren't split up by segment, but this is going to be the new view in a few weeks, where we have grouped all of the correlations by their segments. And so now when you're in project view and you click the plus, you're going to see the segments, and then you have to click the down arrow here, and then you will see all of the correlations within the segment. And with these segments, there's this addition of a select all feature. So if you select all, it will select all of the correlations within that segment for download. And you'll notice here, this is the new UI feature that I alluded to earlier, where instead of the X when you select something, we're going to show a green check. And so then you go to select all, and then you go to download. You get a very simple interface where you just enter your email address, and if you're staff, you can specify a directory and then create tar file or no. So VLBA options are very simple because you're not processing anything. There's nothing for the cluster really to do other than to fetch the data and stage it for you. And if you're downloading a calibration for a VLA data set, which I was talking about several slides back, you would get a very similar view for downloading a calibration tar file. So when there's nothing to be done other than give it to you to download, the interface is quite simple. And then moving on to ALMA data through the NRAO archive. Again, just to emphasize that we're not replacing the ALMA Science Archive, but we're adding value, adding functionality to it with the NRAO archive. So now I put in a search for a project of my own. So use my name, but I also used a project code here, just so I only got one return. And this is the project view. So you click on plus, and then you get the abstract and the co-Is, and then you'll get the view of the MOUSs. So this is a member observation unit set. So this is the basic, this is how ALMA executions are grouped together into one observation of the source. So here we have this one MOUS, which is part of this project. Projects can have multiple MOUSs, and the different MOUSs could be for 12 meter or 7 meter, but you will see them all here in the project view. And now there's a couple of things you can do. You can download restored measurement set, or you can do re-imaging on ALMA data. So first, if you click download restored measurement set, you'll get a view that looks like this, where it's much like the VLA download view, or the VLA download selection, where calibrated measurement set is selected for you, and then you basically have the options of destination directory if you're staff, or create a tar file. And then you submit a request and let it go, and the cluster is going, this is gonna pull the data from the from the ALMA archive and put it back into a calibrated state for you. And so this service is available on ALMA data for cycle 5 and beyond. And then this other option here, which is re-imaging. And what this does is it gives you the ability to make a customized data cube from this ALMA observation. So you have the ability to select spectral window, field, request a different angular resolution, higher or lower, and then you specify the parameters of your cube. So if you're making a cube in frequency space, by default, we don't fill rest frequency, but by default, these settings here are meant to give you a cube that would image 80% of the bandwidth in the spectral window in a frequency-based cube. So by default, these settings should be fine. You just click validate form and submit request. If you didn't care what was if you didn't care about a particular line and just wanted an image of that spectral window. But then you can also go into velocity space and make a velocity-based cube. And so again, you have to select your field and spectral window, but here you have to put in your rest frequency, because making a velocity-based cube doesn't mean anything if you don't give it a rest frequency. Then you specify the starting velocity. Oops, I am sorry. I hit my scroll bar. Then your channel width and velocity, and then you select the number of channels, and it's going to iterate the end channel for you automatically, just so you get an idea of where your data, where your selected cube is going to stop. And then you again click validate form and then submit request. And we have there's a video demonstration of this whole ALMA user-defined imaging process on the SRDP web pages if you wanted to get a more thorough walkthrough of how to use that service. All right, so now I'm sort of getting into some of the known issues and how you might want to do things. So I'm trying to answer questions now that I think users might have.
Okay, John, maybe before we do that, could we answer a couple of questions that popped up meanwhile?
Yes, certainly.
One is because they are directly to the search and download, what you just described. One is, does the CMS include the calibrators, or is it just target sources?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, the CMS does include calibrator sources. And so so the ones that you'll get for ALMA include calibrators, as well as the ones for VLA. We do not split out the targets at present. We may in the future give you the ability to select only certain observation intents, whether it's calibrators or targets, but right now you get everything.
And there was also earlier a question, which I actually add a follow-up here. So the question was that Drew already answered, but let's repeat that. Are the wildcards supported in the source names, and is it case sensitive? And the answer already that Drew was that there are no wildcards. So maybe follow-up question for that, whether that's any change to it as well in the future. So I'll leave it with you.
Actually, wildcards are supported. So for instance, if you just want, sorry, I'm trying to test this in real time, which probably isn't a good idea.
Wildcard did not work for me.
Okay, that's interesting. I found wildcards to work. Or actually, sorry, I think if you put a star, I believe a star won't necessarily work. But I think if you just, okay. Well, Drew, so here, I'll put it just in the project code and I'll clear that one. Yeah, see here, wildcard worked and it's given me all of the 2017 ALMA projects. So I think it will work in some fields, but it may not work in all fields.
Source name is where it did not work for me.
Okay. Yeah, you are correct. Oh, actually, I think if you put it in without a, okay, so this is probably a feature that if you just put in the text here without the star, it's giving me things that have hops in the name of the target. So these are sources I look at, and so I know these are all projects that contain sources identified with the name hops. So yeah, so that's a feature. Some fields require a star to do a wildcard search. Some fields you don't put the star in there. So that again, that's something that we should make uniform across the archive, across the search fields.
And thank you. So I think that was answered. I mean, the users are happy. There is a question on wget instructions in the emails.
Oh,
yeah,
whether they can be included? Yes, that is coming. I don't. It will not be in the next release of the archive version, but it might be several months from now, and you will get the wget command that you can just cut and paste into a terminal and then download the data.
I think actually it may be coming in 4.11.
I thought it was the next version, but
all
yeah,
right.
it'll come soon in any event.
And that's I think that these are all questions for the moment.
Okay, yeah, so I'll go on. So then now these are things that these are to highlight some more of the known issues and quirks that users may run into, things that are likely to confuse folks. I talked about this one a little bit already. How do you add a user to a project so they can get proprietary data? Because data access keys aren't a thing anymore with the new archive. You really just need to submit a help desk ticket to get a new collaborator added, and that will give them access to VLA and VLBA data. For ALMA data, you have to go through the ALMA archive and add a delegate to the project. Because by default for VLA, VLBA, COIs have access to proprietary data as part of our policy, but for ALMA, you have to, it's only the PI. And so the NRAO archive respects the ALMA data access restrictions. And so if you want a pipeline weblog, we don't have those currently available as a separate download or separate view. So if you want a weblog, you download a calibration tarball, and the weblog is stored within that. And so you just have to extract it from the tarball. If you want to get data into your guest or observer account, so this is for non-NRAO staff, whether you're at Charlottesville or in Socorro, local delivery is not yet possible. And so you'd have to submit a regular download request. And then on the NRAO system, you would have to use that wget command we were talking about to fetch your data. And so it'll be reasonably fast going across the NRAO network. So it shouldn't take too long, but it is an extra step that you have to go through. And I should also highlight that for local delivery, you cannot get ALMA data delivered to a computer in Socorro, and you cannot get VLA data delivered to a computer in Charlottesville. This is really only applicable to users that are at the NRAO sites or users of computers at NRAO sites. It's because the VLA archive is in Socorro and then the ALMA archive is in Charlottesville, and so we don't do cross local deliveries at the moment. Some other known issues, I highlighted this issue earlier, which was position searches for ALMA and VLAS mosaics. And so within ALMA and VLAS mosaics, the pointings within the mosaics are handled at a subscan level. So, and the new archive doesn't know about them yet. And so right now, the new archive only gets like the first field of that scan. And so position searches might come up empty. So if you search for do a position search for if you do a position search on a random point in the sky, you would expect there to be a VLAS SDM there, but it may not be there because of the way the search is. The search operates on mosaic data. VLA PI mosaics, so the ones that are not in OTF mode, are immune from this because the mosaic pointings in those cases tend to be defined on a per scan basis, so that it will position search would be able to find your data. Right now, there's limited spectral information available for VLA EBs. We recognize that this is a problem, and we're working on getting improved metadata display for the VLA. Scan list information is not ordered chronologically, which I showed earlier. And then there's a subset of VLA data taken between approximately October 2015 to August 2016 that will show a calibration in the archive, but it will not be restorable. The restores will fail, and this is just due to the way that the data were archived, and at present it's a known issue. File staging with the new archive will take a little longer than the legacy archive. In the next version, which is going to be out in a month or so, there are some speed ups that have been introduced, like we're no longer making the tar files the default. There's a checksum that is computed that can take a very long time and very large data, and we're eliminating that for the moment. And we'll probably bring that back as an option if a user really wants that checksum to make sure that the download matches what was it in the archive. And then the other thing, which is going to which I'm sure will confuse users because it trips us up on the staff every so often, which is the product deliveries. So products, MSs, SDMs, images are within nested directories of the same name, which is quite confusing. And so I show some examples here just so that you're aware of this. And so here I'm showing an image request, and your actual image is 3 levels deep. So you get your archive request in this directory. So if you're a user downloading to your own system using the wget command, you would see something that looks like this. You would see this long file name .fits, but that is not your fits file. That is actually a directory, and within that directory is another directory with that same name, and then you have to go into that directory, and then you find your fits file. For the SDM downloads, it's a similar story where you get a directory that is the exact same name as the SDM, and then within that directory is your actual SDM directory. Historical VLA data, the same deal, where you get the file name of the historical VLA data set, and 3 levels deep within is the actual data that you want. And for VLA calibrated data, it's maybe a little bit more, it's a little bit better because you have the whole file set ID name, but it's not a .ms, and you go into that directory, and then there is your MS. So if you're, in this case, it's not the exact same file name as DMS at least, but there is DMS. And ALMA calibrated data, again, it's not quite so confusing because you have the MOUS ID here, and then within that you have each execution block for ALMA, which has a different ID. And so in the end, you do get your data. It's just that you have to be aware that currently we have this interesting nested structure to how the products are handled and delivered to you. this is something that is on our list to get cleaned up and make more intuitive, but we're not there yet with it. And so rapidly running out of time here, and I want to be able to answer questions. I think I'm almost at my final slide. So in the next 6 months, we're going to try to get a scriptable query interface built up, so that, and we expect the primary interface to be via Python and the Astro query library. And our goal is to make this a virtual observatory compliant table access protocol interface. And then we'll get local delivery opened up for non-staff users. And so this is a big deal for the observer accounts out in New Mexico, and speeding up archive requests. And then you'll get that improved VLBA and GMVA support in the next archive release. So some caveats: not all features from the legacy archive were built into the new archive as of yet. And if there's some missing feature that you want that was in the legacy archive, or if there's a completely different feature that you would like to see, we would like to hear about it. And so you can submit a help desk ticket, and we will look and see whether this is already in our list for development, or if it's something new that we didn't realize we needed to have. And so we would like to hear about it. And with that, thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, John. So do we have further questions? Feel free to raise a hand or unmute, or put your question in chat. Yeah, by the way, Charlotte has, who is our release manager, has confirmed that indeed the wget comment instructions in email will be included in 4.2.0 release. So the next, not the next one, but the one after that.
Okay.
Heinz, yes, please.
Hi, Anna. John, question. You announced at the beginning that next month Mark Lacey is going to talk about the image archive that was available under the NVAS, which I liked quite a bit. Will that be discussed next month then?
No, the NVAS won't be discussed next month, but Mark Lacey is going to be talking about the VLA science-ready data products features that we have. So it's not going to be on the NVAS, but it's going to be on what science-ready data products that you're getting from the VLA, and probably includes things about the VLA PI imaging of new data sets. But the NVAS, we plan to get those images into the new archive, but that is but it's not in the new archive yet. So you have to use there's a separate interface that is still available for the NVAS.
I'm very interested in that link. If you can mention that somewhere.
Oh, for the
right now, I wasn't able to get to that link. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. I can. I probably won't be able to find it easily in real time, but I can. I have your email. I can send it to you, or I can add it to these slides, and they can be updated.
Yeah,
Frank,
I found it very useful. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
It's in the chat. Frank has just added it.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
And it also is included, I think, in the VLA and VLBA, well, VLA facilities links that you have initially put on the first view, your third slide. So that should be linked over there as well.
Thanks very much.
Do you have further questions? will the presentation be available as a PDF?
It should be. I thought Frank had posted it already before the talk, or maybe he hadn't yet, but it will be.
And we also will have the recording posted once it's processed. All right, is there anything else? I realize that it's probably very late, especially in the Europe and further east. So if not, we can probably wrap it up. And yes, the PDF and the recording will be posted online for anyone who would like to revise it.
Yeah. But I mean, if people have questions, they should, I think they're always welcome to get in touch with us. And so, yeah, I guess a lot of I imagine more questions might come up as people go and interact with the new archive. And so we encourage you to go and play with it. You can't break it easily, I don't think.
All right, thank you. Thank you all, everyone. And thank you, John. And I'll see you, all in June for the next webinar.